This video focuses on Unit 5, Standard 6, Level 2. In order to achieve a Level 2, we have to be able to take something that's in standard form and identify what the slope of a parallel line and the slope of a perpendicular line would be. Before we get started on those problems, let's review how do I take something that's in standard form and put it in slope-intercept form so that I can identify the slope. The first step would be to subtract the x term, or you may need to add the x term depending on whether or not this is positive or negative. So in this case, it's a positive 3x, so we're going to subtract 3x from both sides. And that leaves me with a negative 4y equals negative 3x and positive 20. We've moved the x term onto the other side, so now it's time for us to divide by our coefficient of the y. So we're going to divide by negative 4, and on the other side, we're not just going to divide one term by negative 4, but all the terms by this negative 4. So negative 4 over negative 4 cancels and just becomes 1. Negative over negative becomes positive 3 over 4, and the x just sits right next to it. Then 20 divided by negative 4 gives me a negative 5. Okay, that should be your little reminder of how we solve to get y by itself. Now, why do we do this? Because this number in front of the x, when we get y by itself, tells us exactly what the slope is for that equation. And we need to find the original slope. You might remember from Standard 1, we were given an equation that looked like this. We had to find the original slope before we could find the parallel and the perpendicular slope. So let's do a couple of examples. We're going to solve this equation for y. So remember, our first step is to add or subtract our x term. In this case, since it's a positive 2x, we're going to subtract 2x from both sides. And remember, I kind of write it over to the side here to remind myself that I cannot combine these two terms because this 12 does not have an x with it. So I have negative 3y equals negative 2x and a positive 12. Then I have to divide. So divide by negative 3 once, twice, 3 times, and I get y equals negative over negative becomes positive. 12 over negative 3 becomes negative 4. Now it's time for us to identify what is the slope of this original line. The slope is the number in front of the x. That's our slope. And we like our slope for parallel because it's really easy. It's the same number. 2/3. And perpendicular, remember, it's the opposite sign. So it was positive 2/3. Now it becomes negative. And it was 2 over 3. For perpendicular, it's the reciprocal. So we have to flip it upside down. 3 over 2. Let's take a look really quick to see how would I enter that on my classwork. So here's an example of our level 2 classwork. This is the problem we just did. So problem number 7 is asking for the parallel slope. Just a reminder that we would do 2 and then the question mark key is the one that changes it to a fraction for us, thirds. And then for perpendicular, we need to make it negative, and the negative key is right next to the 0 key. So negative, and then 3 question mark key changes it to a fraction. Okay, just a reminder. Let's do one more problem here, and then you can get started on your classwork. So we need to solve this for y. It's given to me in standard form. I need to solve this for y. In this case, I'm not subtracting because this x term is negative, so I'm going to have to add this time. And we know that really, even though I don't see it in front, the coefficient is a 1. So I'm adding 1x to both sides. You don't have to write the 1, but sometimes it can be helpful. So I have positive 5y equals 1x plus 10. My next step, remember, is to divide by the number in front of the y. So I'm going to divide by 5, divide by 5, divide by 5. All of the pieces need to be divided by 5. That makes that 1, so I just have 1y. And here's where it's helpful to make sure that that 1 is in front, because it reminds me that really this is a fraction, just like the other two problems I've been dealing with. 1 over 5, and the x hangs out right next to it. 10 divided by 5 is positive 2. Now it's time to identify that slope again. Here's the original slope. That's my original slope, which means my parallel slope is exactly the same, 1 over 5. And my perpendicular slope, it was a positive 1 over 5, so now it's negative. And 1 over 5, we need the reciprocal of that, 5 over 1. Or if you'd like, you can write it as negative 5. Either one is acceptable. Most of the time, we leave it like this because it's easier to graph when we deal with slopes.